Everyone, welcome. Thank you for coming down here when there's still games to play upstairs. We really appreciate it. My name's Saisha Grayson. I'm the curator of time-based media here at the Smithsonian American Art Museum. And so today we're going to ask, what does it mean to bring video games and museum culture together? What can we learn at the intersection of these worlds? And what can we ask together about and of our shared culture when they meet? Here at the Smithsonian American Art Museum, we've been asking these questions since planning began for our groundbreaking 2012 exhibition, Art of the Video Game. Showcasing the evolution of video games over 40 years of aesthetic and technological innovation, that blockbuster exhibition toured to 10 museums over the next 4 years. And at each stop around the country, it invited audiences to think differently about games as not only entertainment, but also carefully crafted expressions of contemporary culture that merge artistry, design, music, writing, and technology to achieve their impact. Since 2014, we've continued this momentum with our annual SAAM Arcade events, of which this is part, welcoming tens of thousands of visitors like you to experience games in a new setting and see them in a new light. At the literal and figurative center of this is the Independent Developers Showcase, where exceptional, imaginative, unexpected game projects are highlighted, often with their creators on hand. Starting last year, we introduced themes for each showcase, selecting games that are not only fascinating in their own right, but taken together create layered insights on a shared topic. First in 2018, highlighting game spaces, and now in 2019, how games can break barriers. This curatorial approach echoes how we organize our galleries, taking seriously how artworks are meaningful individually and in relation to each other and in relation to the broader cultural conversations we all partake in. And I believe it is in this broadening context that we are making strides this year, expanding attention to how this creative medium, like all others, is expressive not only of individual makers, but of the world in which and for which they are created. Focusing on games and makers that break barriers is to acknowledge that our world, much like gameplay, is full of barriers that impact how we move through space, through an experience, through a story, where it is possible to advance and where things get stuck. Unlike in video games, these barriers are not consistently meted out, universally encountered, or equally surmountable. Focusing on games and makers that reflect on this reality is to also acknowledge that often the most visible aspects of games and the industry do the opposite, uncritically reproducing and exaggerating biases and barriers of society at large. Where video games and museums meet then, we discover a significant role we can play in amplifying vital conversations around cultural significance and values, representation and interpretation, equity and inclusion that mirror how we engage with other forms of art, acknowledging that something can represent both an aesthetic achievement and a problematic set of conditions. And one of the most powerful forces in starting and insisting on such conversations is this year's esteemed guest judge and keynote for today, Tanya DePass. Tanya is a prolific writer, speaker, organizer, and founder in 2014 of I Need Diverse Games, an online platform and nonprofit foundation that brings marginalized voices and projects to the fore and analyzes mainstream content from that intersectional perspective. Crucially, the foundation coordinates scholarships and passes to the many development conferences where expensive entry fees are just one of the most obvious barriers for many to the field. From 2015 to 2017, she was the founder and editor-in-chief of the podcast Fresh Out of Tokens, discussing game culture from a feminist, intersectional, and diverse lens. And in 2018 saw the publication of her edited volume, Game Devs and Others, Tales from the Margin. And she joined the cast of Rivals of Waterdeep, an actual play Dungeons and Dragons games where players defy D&D stereotypes. Across all these platforms, and then we have some updates. Recent announced news. In 2019, last week maybe, yesterday, Tanya has been named as part of the Annenberg Civic Media Fellowship cohort of 2020. She is a Hugo Award nominee as part of the Fireside Fiction Semi-Prozine nominations, And my personal excitement, co-developer of the newly announced role-playing tabletop game based on N.K. Jemison's Broken Earth trilogy. It's going to be amazing. So across all these platforms, Tanya brings knowledge, passion, humor, righteous fury, love, and unflagging commitment to the ongoing and uphill process of pushing games to better reflect diverse experiences and identities and support diverse creators and player communities. With Tanya as our first ever theme-specific guest judge and first ever keynote, we could not have asked for more expert insight when it came to selecting this year's Indie Showcase entry, and we are thrilled to have her with us today to share her thoughts on barriers and what we should do with them. Before I relinquish the podium, I want to thank those who made this year's Arcade and Tanya's presence here possible, our generous donors, Annette Lazareth and Roger Ferguson Jr., Director Circle members, and the Smithsonian American Women's History Initiative, as well as in-kind support provided by Intel and media sponsorship from Washington City Paper. Our amazing and enthusiastic vendors, MegaCat Studios, Death by Audio Arcade, Arcades for Home, MagFest, and WashingCon. And Chris Totten, Tanya, and our other indie developer jurors, playtesters, etc., from SAAM staff and beyond. And at SAAM, our programs and IT team, Nathaniel Phillips, who did all the design, and our many volunteers all weekend who make everything look great and run well. And thanks to all of you for coming and bringing your energy and enthusiasm to this year's event and hopefully the years to come. So without further ado, Tanya DePass.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yep. Good, because I might sit, I might not, I don't know. I'm also using a new laptop, so I don't know what I'm doing yet. Oh, you're not going to get in weird academic, like very stoic talk, just so you know. We might be at the Smithsonian, but they let me come up here, so just, you're getting what you're getting. But thank you for coming. Thank you to the Smithsonian. Thank you to Saisha and everyone else who's made it possible. Libby, Ryan, all of you, thank you, because you've been great today welcoming me and showing me around and making sure I got everything I needed, was well fed, watered, etc. And all my friends that are here, it heartens me to have all of you here watching. Hopefully I do not disappoint anyone. So housekeeping, I'm not going to read this at you. I've been to too many lectures where people literally read word for word on a slide. But please feel free to live tweet, tag me. If I say it here, I'm not ashamed to have it out on the internet. And if I was ashamed, well, too late now. Please use the SAAM Arcade and tag me. That's my handle up there. I know it's a lot of letters, but hey, it is what it is. And ignore the question comment part, because we actually have a curated Q&A. This is my kind of standard thing when I do panels, because how many people have been at a panel and someone stands there and they tell their life story before they ever get to a question? That is not happening when I'm at the podium. And I'm really not going to read that at you. But that's a lot of like my standard bio and the stuff that we don't get a chance to talk about. So I'm not going to read my bio at you. I'm not that important. So I do want to talk about what I Need Diverse Games does and a little bit about how it came about. For the people in the room who've not seen what I do online, I was mad about video games, literally about 6 in the morning in October of 2014. And I threw out some tweets that said, you know, I'm tired of another bearded bro and people not like me, and tagged it I Need Diverse Games. Some friends with much bigger Twitter presences than mine shared it. It began to trend. It became a conversation. It was very much a lightning in the bottle moment. And luckily, people kept wanting to talk about it. So I gave it its own Twitter handle, its own presence online. A community grew out of it. And, you know, for whatever reason, people keep letting me come and talk about it. So hey, I'll take it. But this is what we do. It's not all that we do, and by we, I mean myself and like 2 other people. So if you hear I Need Diverse Games and email and ask about the team, I'm going to start laughing before I reply to you, because the team is like 2 people. But what we do is we support things like Game Developer of Color Expo, which just happened last week in Brooklyn, the Bronx. GaymerX, which is focused on queer issues in gaming. OrcaCon, which is about tabletop inclusivity. It is held in Seattle, and anyone who's in a tabletop knows a tabletop has a worse issue with inclusivity than even video games. And as someone who's been in tabletop since first edition D&D, it's really important to me that it gets better. VectorConf, which is a convention focused on collegiate students getting into game dev. And we do a whole lot of other things. We go to PAX every year, so if you're going to PAX West, we'll be there. Come say hi. And any other projects, Kickstarters we can share, other things that we see by diverse creators. And I know diverse is a buzzword, inclusive, whatever word you want to use today. And also, we do diversity and inclusion consulting. So if you're working on a game, on a project, and you're worried about being that person on the internet that everyone's like, did you not know any black people? We can help you with that for a fee. Oh, come on. Some of you all have played games and you go, did you ever actually meet a brown or a black person in your life? Because you look at the hair, you hear how they talk, how they're dressed, and you just go, have you even gone outside or Googled what a black person looks like? We can help you with this. But I also want to talk about spaces like this, because SAAM is important, and I just like saying SAAM because I'm a big nerd. So, thanks to Ryan for the stats, because I didn't know. So SAAM Arcade brings in about 10,000 people, for the days that it runs, and that's almost double of what the museum can sometimes see in a day. You can show aspects of gaming you don't normally get to see. I mean, how many of the indie games out there are concepts that you would have never thought of as a game or something that could be a game? Because so many people have a very rigid idea of what gaming is. They think it's only FPS shooters, they think it's only fighting games, they think it's just an arcade cabinet depending on the era of gaming you grew up in. So it gets to showcase things that, controllers and concepts, or it makes you think about things that you don't get to see in games where you go run into GameStop or Target or something. There are games about identity, there's games about emotion and feeling and vulnerability out there. So tomorrow, please come back and play more of these games, because that's why SAAM is important. And I know that I'm kind of belaboring the killing and shooting point, but most games have killing as your objective. They have it as, I'm going to murder everyone, usually people that are brown like me, which is an issue, or people that could be like me, or women, minorities, if they do exist in these games. And I think we can do better. I think games can be a lot more than just rack up points by murdering folks and looting them and driving and running them over. And if my friends in the front row start laughing about my video game driving, this will be why. They've seen me stream too many games on Twitch. But also, it's a little unfair to ask you all sitting in the audience, but how many people really expect to walk into an art museum and see games? Show of hands, I can actually see the audience. Oh, come on. All right, so we have one poor lone soul. But for the average person, you don't walk into an art museum or any other kind of museum and expect to see video games. I mean, I frankly was like, the American Art Museum and an arcade, how does this work? And then I had friends who explained this to me, so it worked out. Because I just really had a moment of like, art games, and we're not belaboring the art games art, because if that is your question, I'm going to tear it up at the podium, just so you know. But there's also other museum exhibits that have interrogated games. I know here there was previously an exhibit about video game art, but the V&A also had an exhibit about design, play, disrupt. And it was 4 rooms. It was amazing because you actually got to walk through and see all the ways in which games are built from the ground up, the even fashion of games, esports. And, I was in the exhibit. It was a little weird, let me just tell you, to be alive and walk into a museum and see yourself is really strange. But it made you interrogate these ideas, especially the room that had games and discussed things like Mafia III. Has anyone in here played Mafia III beside me? Oh, come on, really? All right, this is your homework from this lecture. Go play Mafia. You think I'm joking. I'm going to tweet it out because, hey, I think it's a good game. Your opinions and mileage may vary. But walking into a museum and seeing this game and knowing the impact it had on me personally and other people of color, other black folks, was amazing. And I would never think, even 10 years ago, that I would have walked into any museum, let alone one across in London or here or anywhere else, or even the museums back in Chicago, and see a video game dissected and discussed in such a way. Because for something like Mafia III, since barely anyone but me has played the game, you play Lincoln Clay, and he is a mixed race, but you read him as black, guy who's come back from the Vietnam War, and he's got issues, because many of our soldiers did when they came back, and it's a tale of vengeance. He is almost killed by the Mafia, but he also is not a good guy. He was rolling around with the Mafia, and they were like, you know that job you did for us, we're going to double cross you, thanks. By the way, we're going to kill you and everyone you love, except they don't manage it. And to see that, and to see a black character have that tale of vengeance and have agency and get revenge was a very powerful thing. And I ain't gonna lie, the trailer of him throwing the mafioso in the swamp and that guy getting eaten by an alligator, it was the Fry gif. Please take all my money. Because when do I get to do this in video games? Usually that's happening to people who look like me. So that was the power of walking in this museum and seeing, you know, like this game talked about. And granted, you may walk in a tech museum and see like the technical aspects, what it takes to make a video game. That may be in something like Museum of Science and Industry, other places. But overall, a lot of people don't expect to walk in and see them. And I think it's important. I think it's important to break that barrier and that expectation that games belong like on your phone. They belong in your living room. They don't belong in places where you go in and expect to see a Van Gogh or see Body Works or something like that. Like, why do these belong here? Because the very least place that you look for them is going to be the place that maybe sparks your imagination, makes you think about games in a different light. Because a game, you know, I'm going to start that argument. Feel free to argue with me on Twitter. You might get blocked. Of what is a game? Is it only a game if I can play it on my laptop? Is it only a game if I can play it on my phone or my PS4 or what have you? Are the old games some of us grew up with still games by today's standards? Or is me playing chess or checkers, is that a game? And that shouldn't be something I have to walk into a museum and have that moment of discovery, but for a lot of people that is where they may find them. I keep finding people every day that didn't play games as kids. They didn't play games and get that joy out of it as a lot of us did. Or they decided, I'm a grown-up, these must go on the shelf now because I've got a wife, I've got kids, or my spouse doesn't want me playing video games because that's quote-unquote childish. That's not true. I mean, hopefully everyone's room still plays video games because you're here. I mean, you never know. Sometimes people just wandering off the street. The museum is free. But again, games do belong everywhere, especially in a museum, especially in a place of discovery and learning. So I hope that the people, especially those that live here, support that. And if I keep talking and keep talking quickly, someone just wave at me because I do talk a little quickly when I'm a little nervous. But I want to talk more about the barriers of games and getting into games. So since I can't actually see the audience, how many people here actually make games or work in the industry actively? And this is tabletop or, yay, people making games. How many people get to go to GDC though? Game Developers Conference in San Francisco. Not as many hands rose. You know why? Guess how much a ticket to GDC costs? And you don't answer, you know. Just shout from the audience, it's fine. For it's $2,500. What other guesses? 1,000. Okay, 1,000. What else? One more. 4,000. No. That's above even Silicon Valley ceilings. I'm sorry. DICE may cost that much, but GDC doesn't. A full ride ticket is about $2,000 currently. I don't think 2020 prices are out yet. But if you want to see everything at GDC and be there for a whole week, you're looking at $2,000 before you bought a plane ticket, before you booked a hotel, bought a meal, got to the airport, got to your hotel, did anything. So you're looking at maybe $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for a week of professional development if you are in the industry or want to get into it. There is a student day, but it's the very last day. It's $75. But I tell you from personal experience, by Friday, everybody wants to go home. We are tired. We have talked to people a week. Nobody likes anyone by Friday, and that's the one day the poor students get. Look, you go to GDC and come back and find me. Because by Friday, I'm usually on a flight by 3 p.m. It's like, it was nice to see you, goodbye. But But that's just one thing, and that's for the people that really want to get in the industry, come in and talk to their peers, maybe show games. And being in the industry is not a guarantee your company will pay for you, just so you know. A lot of the people that we gave scholarships to this year are in the industry. They've been in the industry for a few years. Their company just won't send them because they're not high enough level. They've only been there a year, what have you, even though this is supposed to be the professional development event of the year. But there's no investment in people to go. So anyone in here for game design, got a degree in it? Don't want to admit how much you owe in student loans for that design degree? So that uncomfortable laughter told me all I needed to know. But, getting a higher ed degree in any field is ridiculous. And here's the thing. Getting that degree does not guarantee a job because some people don't care about academics. They want to see what you can do. So making your own games to supplement that may be better than having that degree. I know people argue, but very few of my friends who are in the industry now actually went and got that degree. People that are younger, about half my age, are getting degrees and they may get a job, but it's going to be hard to convince someone to give you a shot if you've never made anything except in class in some cases. And overall, the economic barrier is high because even going to PAX, doing something like Indiecade, showing your game anywhere, you have to be able to get there. You have to be able to have, a week, maybe more of hotel, etc. That's why a lot of people that are making games, especially indie, are like sharing 3, 4, 6 people to a room. And unfortunately, that's not an exaggeration. So the biggest barrier right now is economic access. Because while we love games, we don't think about the actual literal cost of making them and staying current in the industry and staying in a place where you can make them. There's also geography. There's a lot of game development going on outside the US, but all of the things are US-centric. A lot of people that are in countries in Africa, that is a continent, not the country of Africa, can't go to things like GDC because just the cost is astronomical. I mean, for me, if I don't speak, I don't go. And I still come out of pocket a lot of money. So think about the fact that just based on where you are means you can't access a lot of these things. But thankfully, there's been a couple online developer conferences this year, totally free, just had to watch. So people are kind of pushing back against that, but even economically and geographically, I can talk, I swear. They brought me here for a reason. And it's just cost prohibitive. And in our current political climate, I'm going there. I would not tell anyone to come to this country right now because there's a good chance you may not get in or you may not get out. So if you're brown, trying to come to this country even for professional development, you may not even get a visa. Because we had a couple people who couldn't take advantage of our program because they just were not granted a visa. So in addition to money, being on the other side of the world, it can be literally dangerous to come here at this point if you have the means to come to the US for game development. So those are two big barriers that a lot of people just don't seem to think about because they've got the means to do it. And the last one I want to talk about is physical limitations. I have that get fit, take the stairs kind of facetiously, but how many people have seen things on Twitter where there's someone in a wheelchair looking at an elevator and plastered on is like, take the stairs. You're like, work off some calories. Like, really? You just didn't think about anybody that could have mobility issues, that could be in a wheelchair, just not be able to walk up 3, 4 flights of stairs. I mean, I can't. Granted, I'm short and my legs are short, but that's not why I don't want to walk up 3 flights of stairs. But also non-compliant workspaces. A lot of people I know that would love to go work in various studios, they go and then it's like, this is great. If I got a job here, I can't actually get in the door. Or I can't get between cubicles because no one thought about ADA regulations. Or it's some open plan forest space where there's not even a place where you can work and be left alone or have someone not knock into you all the time. And apparently the game industry, for the most part, doesn't seem to believe in telework that I've seen. I could be wrong. But so many people are like, I'd love to work on this game when they put out, hey, come work with us. And then it's like, you have to move to Sweden. I like Sweden. Like stroopwafels, I don't want to live there. So, but if that's my only option and it's a dream job, do I uproot my whole life? Or do I say, hey, if I'm coding, why can't I just telework? Why do I have to physically be here? Because most of what we do is digital. There is no reason I should have to uproot my life to come work on a game and then be out of a job in 2 years when the contract's over. So those are just some of the barriers. So let's add those negative modifiers. So for the brown people in the audience, you all know the phrase that you have to be twice as good to get half as far. Then add on, if you are non-binary or female presenting. So imagine just how much worse it is. You've now got to be 3 times or 4 times as better to even get your foot in the door. Orientation, by that I mean if you are queer, gay, lesbian, bi, trans, whichever descriptor you prefer, because some people want to fight about the word queer, and that's not what we're here for. But if you choose to be out, so we're up to a 6 times damage modifier by D&D parlance? And then disability, and mental health. So add all of these. Sorry, I'm pointing the wrong way. So add all of these. It'd be a miracle if anybody ever made a game, because a lot of people have all of these modifiers. The game is rigged, it's stacked. If you're not a cis straight white dude, it's stacked against you. Let's just put it on the table. Be mad, I don't care. So add in all of those. Where does that leave a lot of people? Left out, left behind the wall. As it were, we're not building the wall, that's not cool. It does not belong in game dev, in the space, or in the world. But I want to talk about also the importance of shattering those barriers, because that's, the point of this event and thinking about ways we can break them. When you let people in, when you give them a seat at the table, you get better stories. And that's just, it's factual. It's not me just being happy-go-lucky, Pollyanna. You really do get better stories. When you actually think about the people you want to write about, portray, and put in your stories, and you talk to them, amazingly enough, your story will be better because you will have their input. Or here's a thought, hire them on your dev teams. Don't just go, hey, consult for us, make sure we don't mess up. Thanks, here's like a paltry sum of money, see you later. Actually bring them into the fold. Or, this is why a lot of people are making their own stories. They just go, well, the industry doesn't care about me, and not like the industry as a thing should care about an individual, but there should be places for us. There should be places for us to come in, be part of a team, and not just be the diversity hire, not just be, oh, we're making a black character. Let's go ask Brian on the 6th floor if this is okay. Because look, I have stories. So this is what you need to do. You need to bring people in and offer them a seat at the table and not just literally pull the chair from under them, because it happens. You bring people in, you have your check boxes, you think everything's great, your game goes out in the world, and then other people with other lived experience go, wait a minute, this isn't okay. And so I have an asterisk by the playing field part of it, because in theory, that's great. Theory is a wonderful place to live if you can get in. But systemic things make that impossible. Right now, even let's say if all of us were all rich, we all, have whatever background we need to make games, do what we need to do, that doesn't mean it's equal. There's systemic oppression and history, and especially in this country, that we need to overcome before it can truly be equal. And I'm not trying to be pessimistic and be a downer, but it's just the truth of things. We can give people all the equal starting blocks, we can give people scholarships to school, we can do all these things, these wonderful programs, but they still have to go out in the world with other people who have already been entrenched with the ideology that they are the default, that they are the ones that are to be catered to. And that's not true. If anyone follows the IGDA, the International Game Developer Association, they put out a survey every year, it's self-reported. And people talk about, what it is they do when they put out a racial, people are in the industry talking about the racial breakdown. And not surprising to anyone, about 1% of those people surveyed are black. Maybe a few more percent are Pacific Islander. Overwhelmingly, guess who the respondents are? Just go on, you or me.
White people.
No, not just white people.
White dudes.
Yes. I think the last survey was 74% white men were in the industry making games. So, is it any surprise why we keep getting the same games over and over? And I don't say that to be entirely facetious. That's a lie I do. But if you don't have people like me, other folks in the audience who are making these games, and you're not hiring them and bringing them into the fold and keeping them there, making sure they're productive and welcomed and happy, we're going to keep getting the same games over and over and over. Or things like dude grows up, has a kid, realizes women are people too, kind of games we keep getting. Or a child grows up motherless because for whatever reason, because that seems to be a thing. People keep killing off women in these games. Like, could you let people actually have a happy family life for once? But again, the same people are making the same games. So that's why I say in theory, and I kind of wanted to hammer down on that a little bit, because everyone's like, oh, well, you know, if we break down barriers and give people like one scholarship to GDC, everything will be great. That's the biggest lie anyone has ever told anyone in game development. Because the other part of this is people get programs, they get that one shot at things, and then there's no follow-up. There's no, hey, 6 months later, how's your game doing? How are you doing? Did you get any interviews? Are you doing any internships? It's like, here's your one shot, good luck, see you later, and that's it. And I know I'm just like so cheerful, but I plan to be a little more cheerful. But I also want to talk about other people beside me. Yes, the Smithsonian invited me, but there's so many people doing the work, and I want to acknowledge that. My friend Cherry Thompson, lovely, lovely human who is doing accessibility work, visiting studios, and doing a lot of other work. Also works with Game Accessibility Conference. I had to think about it. I was about to use the acronym, and that's never useful. But yeah, I wanted to give Cherry some love, and also some other organizations. So who here knows about AbleGamers? Yay, AbleGamers. So yeah, they work with Xbox. They work with a lot of other people to help folks get devices in order to play games and not be left out in the cold. Xbox Gaming for Everyone. It's a little more internal, but they are doing things like at PAX, at GDC. So I wanted to give them some acknowledgement. Game Accessibility Conference, which is actually going to do its first European conference this year. AnyKey is about esports specifically, so good sportsman-ish conduct in esports and inclusion. And why wouldn't I put my own organization? So that would be weird if I didn't. All right. So I know I talked a little quickly, but that means there's plenty of time for comments. No comments, no. No, Ben, no. Questions, which are being curated. But I want to, this is not the end. This is not, okay, go forth and do better. I give you my blessing, because I ain't going to ever do that. No, so quick story time, if I have time to do it, because I have not been watching a clock. A lot of times when I do panels, when I do these things, especially in tabletop spaces, I will inevitably get the, I want to play a black person, is that okay? And I'm like, I can't stop you. I'm not at your table. Why? But people want that permission. They want to know that they're not a bad person for trying on something different. And to them I always go, you can do this, but you have to realize that your GM or DM should probably have a very serious conversation with you and interrogate why you want to do this. Or I get people who are angry that I've got to be a black dude in Mafia 3, why is that? And when I stream the game, for example, I got some of the worst harassment, well, second worst harassment I've ever had on Twitch. People coming in going, why you gotta be a black dude? I can't see him, turn up the brightness. And various other slurs that I will not use in this August establishment. But yeah, that was fun. By fun, I am being sarcastic. So, in conclusion, but I want you all to think about this as you leave and as we talk about everything. We need to do better. And this isn't, pointing fingers at anyone. This isn't like, you, white person, you're evil. Trust me, follow me on Twitter, you'll see all kind of weird stuff. But this is a call to all of us, because I still fail. I fail on a lot of issues. I'm not perfect. No one is. But we have to think about, and yes, I know that my friends are going to laugh at me because I took this shot. Who gets to be in the room where it happens? Who decides what barriers goes up? And who gets to tear them down? Because how many people work in an org, or they see someone trying to do good, their heart is in the right place, and they mean well, but they walk into a diversity committee meeting, and it's like, every white person in the org that may or may not have some other aspect of marginalization, and they mean well, they really, really do. But you're like, did you not have a single brown person you could have brought onto this committee at all? Or you go to a diversity panel, even better. I don't know if anyone's seen that photo of like the 4 white Samoyeds or whatever the dog breed is. And it's like your average diversity panel. I couldn't find the picture, it would be in the slides, trust me. And yes, I'm going to end on a Hamilton quote because I'm a nerd. Think about at the end who lives, who dies, and who gets to tell your story. So with that, Q&A. I don't know how much time we have because I really have not been watching a clock. Yay, because I talk fast when I'm nervous, and I'm actually incredibly nervous. Oh, sure. We'll get some chairs and kind of sit down on stage and do this fireside style, but in the meantime, I hope you all have been writing questions and can pass them over. So while I'm just standing here and you all are staring at me, do we want to take Q&A from the audience while we are kind of waiting on things? Saisha? All right, so someone shout out a question while we're waiting on these to come through. Make it a good one and an actual question. Oh, come on, y'all. Really? All right.
I'll kick it off. So one of the questions I had for you was, you've got some criticisms. What is a game that you played that you're like, yes, they get this. This is what I've been waiting for. Some moment where like that happened.
So the question was, for those watching the stream and those in here can hear it, is that I've gotten criticisms, but what is a game where I feel like they've gotten it? And honestly, for me, it's Mafia III. And yes, a lot of the development team was white, but surprise, they had a black guy on the staff that did a lot of the writing, and you can tell. But there's actually a disclaimer when you start the game of, we did not shy away from the racism and violence of that era, because it's set in 1968 Louisiana, because they felt the game would not be as impactful or as legitimate if they did not include that. Because how are you going to set a game in 68 Louisiana and not deal with racism? But a lot of people just didn't know what to do with that. Rock, Paper, Shotgun had an article in progress where the gentleman decided he was weary of hearing the N-word how many times in this game. And I was just like, try being a 40-year-old black chick. Let me holler at you. Because he was just so weary hearing this word over and over. So, you know, I know people have criticisms of Mafia 3 because some people feel it reinforces stereotypes of violent black men, but I thought it was cool, and I really enjoyed playing it. All right, do we have cards? How much time do we have? I talk quick.
Yeah, but if you want me to use it on
Do you want to sit? Or?
Do you want to sit?
Sure.
Okay.
We're going to sit down. Shame you all now. Where are the rest of the questions? Did you have a card? Oh, people didn't get cards.
People didn't get cards. Okay.
Extra card if someone.
Sarah?
Let me get them cards and I'll answer questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Can y'all hear me? Oh, hi. All right, so cards are coming to the folks who didn't get them, and that way we can keep talking. All right, so, look, it's dark up here. So, How do you encourage diversity from people of color, generally speaking, in the game industry? Okay, there's like 3 questions on here. So, diversity from people of color, whoever, I mean, you don't have to say who you are, but I'm not quite understanding the wording. Do you mean from people of color for people of color? Did the person leave? All right, I'm going to run with it. So, diversity from people of color, you know, when you don't see us in games, speak up. And by this, I mean, contact the developer in some way, respond to them on Twitter and go, hey, I played your game. I know it said medieval England, but you know that we existed, right? We were not sprung up just from slavery. That you can look up Moors and all these other people. And if you mean for people of color, the same thing applies. Go out and find other people, you know, see who's playing games, see who's talking about it, see who's not talking about a game and what they're saying. But one piece of advice I'll say is don't go yell at developers on Twitter. It's just going to get you blocked and they're not going to listen. Because they get that so much, they're not going to pay attention. And the second question on here, what advice can you offer to people who want to join the community but don't know where to begin? And by community, I'm guessing you mean the game development, like getting in the industry. And if I'm wrong, please correct me. I would say go to small events locally if you can. Follow gaming accounts on Twitter. Look up blackgamedevs.com. That is actually people in the industry who've opted into a list, and they list like what they do. It's broken down by occupation, by location. Find other people in the industry that are doing things you want to do and reach out to them. Twitter can be an okay medium, but if they've got a contact form, that may be better, because a lot of people of color in the industry have been harassed and abused and stalked, so they may not be receptive to a rando Twitter reach out. And just so you know, the let's have coffee and let me pick your brain approach is old. Don't do it. Because so many people want to do that. They basically want to turn into a free consulting moment. And what you thought was going to be a half-hour informational chat turns into, oh, this is something I should have paid like $300 for. So reach out to people, ask about mentorship, look into the International Game Developer Association. They do have a student rate, whether you're a student in game design or not. Look that up and try to join, and they've got a lot of great resources. All right, so next question. Although I feel really lonely with just one chair and me.
Here, so, let's switch this up, okay. So we're just gonna, after these sets, hand around the mic, so.
Okay.
Raise your hand, another question.
Yay.
I'll just hang out up there.
Yay. I'm not so lonely anymore. Okay.
This usually goes really smoothly, like the card thing is usually a good move, but, okay, so, yeah. So if you could diversify, in quotes, any major game franchise, which would you choose and how would you do it? Oh, I love this question.
So many. My friends are laughing at me because they probably know what I'm going to say. Dragon Age. Because I love that game, but good lord, more brown people come from places besides like Tevinter, Antiva, and Orvain. And also D&D, I'm not going to lie. I love D&D, but they can do a lot better. The iconic human in D&D 5th edition handbook is a black woman, but someone pointed out to me at Gen Con, which I hadn't caught, that the warrior, I think, is also a black dude, but he really looks like he came out of a terrible, like, 30s Tarzan flick. He's got a shield and a sword that looks a little too tribal for my comfort that I totally missed reading this handbook. But I would do Dragon Age mostly because while they did have black characters in the most current game, Vivienne is an ice queen and you can't marry her, and she's totally, what is the word? I can't think of the right word, but she got all her power from like an old white dude she was banging, and that was how she got where she is. You can't date her. Not that I would date someone like Vivienne, but that's a whole other conversation. But we finally get some like attractive dark-skinned black people. We can't date them. Sir Barris isn't dateable either. You just send him on his way if he lives, because he could die. Sorry, spoiler. The game's been out for 4 years. You ain't played it by now. That's on you. But yeah, definitely Dragon Age, and also Mass Effect. If we do ever get another Mass Effect game, do a little bit better there as well.
So with what? Yeah, this one's a novel. Everybody ready? So with all the backlashes as of late, with so with all the backlashes as of late, with the Disney controversy, particularly the lack of diversity, instead of getting angry or sad, what can people of color who are not gamers do to promote or create more opportunity for people of color who are interested or who want to make a difference?
Ooh, that was a lot.
Yeah, novel.
So the whole Disney backlash is, so spoiler, the original Little Mermaid still exists. Your childhood is not ruined by Ariel being black in the new movie. Deal with it. But for people of color maybe aren't in games, you still need someone who can write, who can draw, who can program. If you are doing a project that maybe isn't game related, but maybe you're writing a novel, and you, let's say just because I'm a black chick who grew up in Chicago, doesn't mean I know about the experience of other people of color if I want an Asian perspective, South, East, North, or West Asian, or I want a Hispanic or Latino perspective. That's not my wheelhouse, so then I can reach out to someone else and get their opinion and get their worldview and get their diversity consult. So think about ways in which the components of a game can be used and brought out to other people, and reach out in your community, because I'm sure that even if you're not a gamer, you can find people who are.
So since there's such extraordinary effort in getting this to us, as a developer who often finds myself in all-white game spaces, what are some tips for how to consciously invite people of color into that space without making them feel tokenized?
First, thank you for your amazing effort in getting that question up here. I would say just reach out to people and not have your first contact be, oh, I'm making a black character, can you look them over and make sure I'm not a racist? And I'm really not trying to be facetious for once in my life. Reach out to people, like ask who's doing things, and when you put out calls for maybe artists, writers, whatever you need on your team, when you put that out, put people of color, queer folks, etc., strongly encouraged to apply, because what I found is if you're not explicit, if you don't say that when you put out job postings or looking for people to work with, be it freelance or what have you, we self-select out of that. Because a lot of times we assume that we're not welcome, that because so many spaces have been unwelcoming. So be very specific in what you're doing and your wording, and go, hey, we want more people here, but don't go, look, we have our checkboxes. Just go very strongly encouraged to apply, reach out, like feel free to find me and send me an email so we can share your job postings, whatever you're looking for. And again, use Twitter for once for the power of good and go, here's what we're looking for, share it amongst your people, amongst developers. And again, use blackgamedevs.com, use resources that are out there. There's special interest groups, SIGs in IGDA. So there is a Black Game Dev SIG in IGDA. You can reach out to them and go, hey, there's a job posting. Or find other people that can share it out as well. Because a lot of times when we get these offers, some people are still a little shy about it. They're like, I don't know, because I've been burned before. Or are you trying to do the catch everyone like Pokemon thing and say we're diverse, but we have our one brown person, we have our one woman, we have our one queer out person. And look, we're diverse, we did great. So be intentional, but don't be over the top, if that makes sense.
Great. And this question is, where do you feel the industry is lagging the most in representation? And do you think that's changing at all?
They're lagging everywhere. I mean, it's no lie. Look at stage D3, look at a lot of times when you see events, how many people of color do you see on stage that are not talking about being people of color and being brown and how much the industry sucks? It's getting there slowly. Earlier, I was talking to someone from NPR. I talked about how even 5-6 years ago, I would have never thought to see the Harlem Hellfighters on a game cover. I've never thought to see Nilin from Remember Me, a clearly brown female character, as a protagonist of a game. So it's getting there very slowly, but there's always that pushback. There's always the assumption of an agenda, and the dreaded SJW, whatever. Look, if we're really taking over games as much as people think we are, we wouldn't have to keep having these arguments. I could be doing very well making games and not having to deal with people going, oh my God, there's not free. I almost swore, is that okay? Okay, I don't want to get anyone in trouble because my friends know I have a foul mouth. But, you know, these breasts are not as large as they could be. They don't bounce and defy gravity. How dare you? You know, things like that. So it's getting better, but what we need to do is be more conscious at the hiring level, be more conscious at the promotion level, and when someone's a problem, get them out. Not send them away for 2 weeks, let them come back and still have a flourishing career like so many men in the industry get to do. So, yeah, we need to get the bad faith actors out and get more people in that actually care about these issues and not make it seem like, oh, look, I did my due diligence, and then they get frustrated and leave not just the job, but maybe the industry.
And sorry to interrupt, I think we have time for one more question.
Okay, perfect. So this is for us. How do you find games that are both diverse and engaging for women over 40?
Oh, wow.
Very specific.
Wow, that's a good one. If you know other women over 40, ask them, and you can ask me, find me. And I'm not, again, not being funny, but it's also subjective because what I find hilarious, other people may find incredibly offensive. I mean, I still like play The Sims and put Sims in houses and take the ladders out of the pool. So, but I also will get online and play Call of Duty. So, engaging, and I don't want to feed into a stereotype, but for me, I will sit and play a narrative RPG all day. I'll play Dragon Age, Mass Effect, The Witcher, but find out what someone likes and kind of go from there. But, you know, find me, tweet at me. I will tell you all the games I like, and hopefully they are your cup of tea as well.
And I sort of lied because there's only one more question, so we're just going to finish the stack, okay? So do you feel that it's the responsibility of those not in diverse groups to aid in their projects?
And do you mean the project writ large of diversifying games or specifically game projects?
All right.
However you want to interpret it.
Absolutely. So this is where I get to rant about allies for a second. Because one, I hate that word. I never want to hear it again in my life. Because, well, a lot of times people say, I'm an ally. They go, I do the bare minimum. I wear a safety pin. I yell at other white people on Twitter, and I'm an ally. But they don't actually do the work. They give $5 here and there, and they think, I've done my job. I'm an ally. What you can do is speak up, use your voice to elevate, not to speak over. Don't white knight. And by white knighting, I mean speaking for someone. So if I'm on Twitter, perfect example. There are some people who are real not happy about the company that is doing the RPG with Nora's books. And they've decided that that is the hill they want to die on. And some people love them dearly, but they've decided they have to go in charge and defend me. I'm a loudmouth. I can talk for myself all day long. But that's what I mean by white knighting. So use your voice to elevate, and if you're in a position of power, especially if you hire people or have money, support those people that are doing work that are not going to get that chance. I mean, look at Kickstarters, look at other things. You can look at the stats. Things done by people of color usually don't get funded. They don't get the same attention. They don't get other things. So use your privilege and your position to do that. And if you must try to be an ally, don't use that word, say I'm an accomplice, I'm helping, anything but that, because at least for me, and again, this is, your mileage may vary, do the work and don't expect the cookie. And just be silent. Do whatever you can, retweet folks, don't add your story, don't tell if someone's talking about someone touched my hair, don't go, people touch my hair too, it's so curly. People have done this to me. And I just laugh at them and then I walk away before I do other things. But mind your manners, stay in your lane, as folks like to say, and be aware of your privileges and use that for good. And if someone says, hey, this isn't your place, this isn't your argument, maybe you should let that go, step back and be quiet and just listen more than anything else.
Thank you. I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming and staying. Thank you, Tanya.